consider that the team is kind of what they are, at least for now. And since Jeff Passan is the guy who taught us this rule, Brock, what a perfect person to talk to today. Good morning, Jeffrey. How are we?
Gentlemen, how are you?
Well, we're good. We're past Memorial Day. That was yesterday. We're 52 games into this thing. The Mariners are a couple games ahead of last year's pace, but we've also now watched them lose 10 of their last 17. They're 7-10 in their last homestand and road trip. What do we think here on Memorial Day about these Mariners?
I think that there's a very compelling reason to say that they are the best team in the American League West, in spite of what you've seen over that last chunk of games. And it's because they are a well-rounded team. And that's not something I thought, guys, I was going to be saying about the Mariners coming into the season. I thought that the offense was going to have issues, and certainly it has had some issues over the last, week and change. Jorge Polanco has seemingly stopped hitting, and Dylan Moore isn't really hitting anymore, and Ben Williamson coming back to earth. J.P. Crawford hasn't been great. Like, it hasn't been good, but these are the ups and downs of a season, guys. And I would say that over those first 52 games, far more good can be said about these Mariners than bad.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I said the deepest team we've seen here in as long as I can remember, because they've used, I believe, more players than anybody in all of baseball, between starters, bullpen, people called up in the infield and the outfield, just about everybody. Is there another team in baseball that has had to use as much depth as the Mariners have in 2025?
Yeah, I think the Dodgers certainly have. Their pitching injuries have just been ridiculous. It's bad for the Mariners that they missed the first 8-9 starts of George Kirby's season, and that Logan Gilbert and Bryce Miller are still injured right now and on their way back. But the Dodgers are down like a dozen pitchers, and as much depth as they have, they've weathered it and they've managed it, and they're still at the top of the National League West standing, so they seem to be doing all right. But yeah, there are other teams out there that have had trials and travails like the Mariners. It's just that most of them haven't handled it as well as the Mariners have.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read this quote from Bryce Miller yesterday, where we think we know what it means, but he had his sim game, and afterwards said he felt pretty good, was probably ready to start again this week, and said, "I know the cause, but I don't know if I should say it. I'll say that everything's structure was really good. There's something in there that causes inflammation, and something I can't just take out without missing the rest of the year. So this ideally gets me to the end of the year, and then we can reassess and see if I need to clean it up or anything. But at the end of the day, it feels good." Is that loose bodies? What do you hear there?
It either sounds like loose bodies or a spur. Yeah. And look, neither of those is a good thing, but both of them are things that I personally have known pitchers to pitch through. And it's not going to be comfortable. Not going to put a big smile on your face when your elbow feels like there's something wrong in there. But as long as the pain is just concentrated in that very specific area where the bodies or the spur would be, that seems to make a lot of sense. And that seems to be something. I mean, John Lester is a perfect example. And I did a chapter on him in my book when he was a free agent. And John Lester had a bone spur that there was some fear that the UCL was going to get caught on and it was going to fray away at it. And John Lester wound up pitching his entire career without having major arm problems. So it is very possible. And what pitchers do is they learn to manage it. It's just the reality of being a pitcher sometimes. Things are going to be sore. You're doing something that is physically taxing, that is mentally taxing. And when you add in something that shouldn't typically be there in a healthy pitcher, it adds the degree of difficulty. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there's more ineffectiveness coming. Guys can still be very productive with those sorts of injuries if, in fact, that's what it is.
I think I know your answer to this, but I'm going to ask you it anyway. So could you play cut number 4 in the same vein, not talking about a spur or loose bodies, but talking about a particular pitch and the strain that may or may not put on the elbow? Here was Logan Gilbert after his sim game.
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, I was letting it rip, and whatever happened, and I felt good. So that's great. The splitter's the one that I just threw a couple of them at first just to, like, test it out, just make sure. And then the last one I threw normal was, the same splitter I always throw. And it's funny because, up until this point, I haven't really felt anything on that pitch specifically. I just had tightness a month ago or whatever. But because some people say it can add more stress, I'm just trying to be as careful as I can.
Jeffrey, does the split finger put more stress on that elbow?
That's what we are led to believe. I haven't seen any specific live data of guys pitching, and the numbers suggest that there is more stress and strain on the elbow. But if you think about it, anyone can do this, right? Take your index finger and take your middle finger and spread them apart as far as you possibly can. And tell me if you feel a little something in your forearm there. Mm-hmm. You probably do along the lateral or the outside.
I'm doing it right now. And I can
so
split my fingers as wide as my eyes.
No, that's not true. There's no way it's as wide as your eyes.
Look, there's
not
wide.
get carried away.
Look at
You'd
that.
have to do the Longhorns thing to even come close.
You guys done?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, we're done. Sorry.
Okay. So when you do that, you feel it in your forearm. And if you think about it, the way that the pitching arm works is you build up all of this energy during your delivery. It goes through your legs and up into your butt and travels up your back and into your shoulder and down your arm. And the reason there are so many UCL injuries is because a lot of the time guys don't properly throw the baseball such that that energy is distributed down into what is the body's natural brake. And that brake is the bundle of muscles in the forearm. Now, all of this ties back because when you split your fingers like that, clearly it has some sort of effect on those muscles in the forearm. And when you change from what you normally do on other pitches, it could potentially have a deleterious effect. Does it? I don't know definitively, but at very least, logically, it makes sense that if something is compromised or changed because of a grip, then it's going to have some kind of tangible effect on the actual arm.
Well, we will certainly hope that both those guys are able to come back here, and it sounds like both are getting reasonably close. I know we always talk about this, and then baseball has a way of working it all out, but I have not seen anything from Emerson Hancock that tells me he's not a major league starter. Do you consider a 6-man rotation if and when you get all your guys healthy? Do you have to send Emerson back down to AAA and just stash him there? Do you move someone, namely him, to the bullpen? What are you doing with Emerson Hancock if and when you're totally healthy?
So I look at it this way. Right now, when you have Bryce Miller and Logan Gilbert back, let's look at what the rotation consists of. Luis Castillo, who has a clause in his contract about potential elbow issues. Brian Wu, who has never made it through a full season healthy. And 3 guys in George Kirby, Bryce Miller, and Logan Gilbert, who have been injured this year. If ever there is a time for this organization to go with a 6-man rotation, it would seemingly be this year, and it would seemingly make a lot of sense. Now, that doesn't mean that it's what they should do or that what they're going to do, but at very least, the logic behind it's pretty sound.
What is the concern when you do, if you were to go there, that you're now operating with one fewer bullpen arm? How challenging is that in today's game?
can be a challenge, but that's what options are for. That's what having the train between Seattle and Tacoma is, right? It's knowing that there's somebody who literally can drive to your ballpark if you need another arm that day. And that option rules allow guys to go up and down as many times as you want, as long as they don't have 5 years of service. And so it's going to be a big train, I think, between Seattle and Tacoma, but that's okay. Like, they'll take that, right?
Well, it kind of depends on time of day, whether and how quickly you get up I-5 or 405, Jeffrey. It can be affected there. Give me history, give me precedent where you've seen a 6-man rotation flourish and take a team to a pennant.
The 6-man rotation's kind of new, Brock. It's something, because remember, up until like the 90s, we were operating with 4-man rotations, and guys were going on 3 days rest. And then they're like, all right, well, maybe 5 makes more sense. And with the roster constraints that exist now and the maximum number of pitchers being 13, it does make it a little trickier, but it's something that teams do, I think, when compelled to. The Dodgers, for example, were compelled to because of their pitching depth and because they have so many guys who have injury histories. And it clearly has not helped them stay healthy, but I think, it forces teams to really have starting pitching depth if you're going to do that. Because if you're going 6 and one guy gets hurt, yeah, they can call up Logan Evans again. And that would, I don't think anyone would hate that or say that guy is not worthy of a rotation spot. But at the same time, the starting pitching depth for the Mariners doesn't, like good big league depth doesn't really go much beyond that. And then you might have to switch back to a 5-man rotation. And that's something that all of these guys have done. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But once you commit to 6, you kind of want to stay with 6 just because guys get used to it.
I did a little digging into numbers, which is always dangerous, Jeff, as I'm sure you know. But I thought maybe you could offer your opinion on what you think is going on in these 3 situations. Well, really just 2. The first one was that the Mariners' OPS has dropped significantly in May. Their OPS plus went from 113 to 90 when you look at April compared to May. So obviously a drop-off. We've sort of talked about that. Help me with these other 2 numbers. Times facing opponent in a game, the Mariners are pretty darn good the first time they see a starting pitcher, a 129 OPS plus. Second time through, league average, 101. Third time through, when the league gets much better against pitchers, they drop to 70 OPS plus. Does that seem odd to you?
That makes no sense to me. It's the opposite of what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the more you see a guy, the better you fare against him. But, I have no explanation for that one.
Is it that the more they see the Mariners, the pitcher is able to make more adjustments? Are they seeing more spin in all likelihood the third time through rather than more fastballs at the beginning? We were trying to just kind of throw stuff against the wall earlier, but there was, I don't know, it's a surprising number.
Yeah, it really is. I wish I were smart enough to think of reasons of this on the fly, and I really appreciate you putting me on the spot.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, usually, hey, just let me tell you something. Let me peel the onion back, Jeff. You know what Salk does for Daniel Jeremiah, who is a regular Wednesday guest for us? He would often send him Tuesday night notes.
Yes.
Like, hey, man, here's 4 or 5 areas I want to go.
It's true.
Does he ever do that to Jeffrey Passan?
But then DJ told me I was giving him homework, and he got mad at me about it.
Has he ever once given you a game plan of what he's going to call, the directions he may go, Jeff? Has he ever been a friend like that to you as he is to DJ?
Yeah, he's done that a couple of times, but not today.
Not this one. All right.
No.
Well, I actually wasn't even sure I was going to ask you about this, and then it came up earlier, and we decided to go here. The other one that jumped out to me is their numbers go way down when they use their bench, and that's not. I think the league drops off probably a little bit also, but pinch hitting and/or bringing guys in as a pinch runner, and then they hit later, their numbers drop precipitously every time that happens. Is that who they have on their bench, or is that when they're going to those guys? I don't know that anyone knows the answer to that. But
I mean, that feels more like a who than a when, right? like the bench just tends not to have guys who are all that good. But that surprises me a little because I haven't looked at the Mariners' depth as being a huge problem. I know Donovan Solano's, not having a great year, but a guy like Leo Rivas has been really good at points. And, the platoons that they have going seem to have worked.
Well, here's a little more context to that because this might make that make sense. Their on-base percentage numbers are almost identical when they go to pinch hitters. It's all slugging that drops. They lose well over 100 points in their slugging, and that's where most of the problem comes from. And when you say Leo Rivas, Garver has, one home run? Mastroboni doesn't hit home. I mean, they're not looking at guys in that spot. I think the only home runs they have, are one from Dylan Moore and one from Rowdy Tellez. Might be the only two pinch hit home runs they have this year.
Mm-hmm.
So sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I'm, to be very clear, I'm perfectly okay with my bench people being like on base merchants. Like that's what you want from guys who are coming off the bench, because typically they're coming in leverage type situations and you're looking to score some runs. You're not going to be pinch hitting necessarily if you're up 5 or 6 runs, unless it's just to, get a guy some playing time or get him on the field. But if guys are getting on base, I think that feels like a win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jeffrey, look at the standings. I, too, could have been a better friend and sent you this last night. Kind of a big picture question. But as we turn now past Memorial Day, as we get into June, as we look at the next 3 to 4 weeks of this baseball season, what would be some best case scenarios for the Mariners of teams falling apart? Of teams saying, you know what, we are just not in it. We have got to make a move. The Mariners, one of the richest farm systems in all of baseball, right? This Mariners team, I think we all believe, could use another bat, maybe 2 bats, depending on Rayleigh and the prognosis for Robles. Give me something to watch for over the next 3 to 4 weeks of a team or two that could just kind of fall apart and be a real benefit to the Mariners as a trade partner.
That is a really good question. And I think it starts in the American League East when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox. And I know the Tampa Bay Rays have won 6 in a row right now, and the Baltimore Orioles, who are definitely out of it. All of those teams could potentially have guys who are desirable at the deadline. I know a number of teams were hoping that Minnesota would continue struggling. Then they went and ripped off like a dozen wins in a row, and they're 5 games over 500 now, as good of a record as the Mariners right now, essentially. So that might be off the table. I don't know that the Texas Rangers are going to trade within the division, but they have been very disappointing, and yet they're only 4.5 games back. And then you look at some more of the dregs, the Nationals and the Marlins and the Pirates. I don't even know if there's anyone on the Rockies. The Diamondbacks have sort of been floating around 500 this year. They're an interesting team. Brewers and Reds have a couple of guys. The Cardinals have been fantastic, and they were a team that I think a lot of people were anticipating were going to be active at the deadline. It's just, Brock, I feel like even at the beginning of July, it still might be too early because there are 12 playoff spots, and there are so many teams right now that are ostensibly in the mix. In the National League, I think probably everyone but the Rockies, Pirates, Marlins, and Nationals. So that's 11 teams right there. And in the American League, I know the A's are struggling, and I don't really look at the Angels as threats, even though they're tied with the Rangers right now, the White Sox and the Orioles. But there are not a lot of teams who are very clearly selling at this point. And because of that, I do think the market's going to be slow to develop.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy that the Orioles are already out of it. I know it's true. I'm not disagreeing with you. It just continues to blow my mind that it's gone the way it does, the way it has. You mentioned the Cardinals, and I know you mentioned them last week. I don't think I realized that that's where Brant Brown had gone after being fired as a hitting coach here last year, and they're hitting the snot out of the ball.
They love him there, by the way.
I believe it. So what is the deal?
And I think Well, I just think it goes to show there are different personalities and different voices in every clubhouse that resonate. And a guy who might not be a fit in one place could be precisely what they're looking for somewhere else or what they need. And I don't look at the Mariners and Brant Brown's, short-lived relationship as being some sort of catastrophic failure that's indicative of something wrong with the Mariners. It's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes the boss and the employees don't get along, and that doesn't make him a bad boss. It just means he's a bad fit, and that's okay. You're going to have bad fits sometimes.
Hey, I got to ask you about one guy just because we haven't, unfortunately, talked about him yet, and we're going to have one of your ESPN teammates on Thursday. Hembo is going to come on because he has been going.
Hembo's great.
Isn't he great? And stop. What do you mean? His love for Brock's just mean.
Passan, you're great. I don't just put people in your territory. Like, you're great. You're elite. I just don't throw somebody else in there. I don't throw around those compliments.
The way Buster trusts him and stuff, though, I don't know. That's pretty good. Anyway, he was going on and calling Andres Munoz great. In fact, he at various points called him the best reliever and possibly the best pitcher in the game, citing both the fastball numbers and what he does with the slider. Are we watching certainly the best reliever and maybe the best pitcher in baseball?
I'm not going to go best pitcher. We'll stop there. Hembo's getting out over his skis a little bit with that one.
Thank you.
But best reliever. I mean, is there an argument against it at this point?
I don't know. We don't get to see the whole rest of the league. I mean, he's been unbelievable, and from our mind, obviously, he looks as good as anybody. But is there anyone else out there Hader, some of the other guys that have been sort of known for it the last few years, has he superseded those guys?
Yes. Yes, he has. And listen, Josh Hader's been really good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking to slight him at all. But what Munoz has done is refine his game enough where he's not walking guys very frequently anymore because he's got the fastball velocity, average 99 miles per hour, and can spot that. That is a weapon. And yeah, Hembo's not wrong. The slider is a nasty, unfair pitch. And so when you take a guy whose four-seam fastball has gas, whose sinker is a really nice sort of, it's not a change of pace, but it just gives guys a different look. And then you add the slider into that. And we don't even know when he's going to, or if he's going to unleash the kick change. But it's hilarious to me that the guy can be the best reliever in baseball. And oh, by the way, he's got something else in his pocket that he's hiding away for, a rainy day. And I imagine we're going to see it at some point. To me, the most important thing when it comes to Andres Munoz right now is that Dan Wilson does not overuse him. They need a fresh Munoz for the postseason, a guy who maybe is in a position to get a 4 or 5 or even 6 out save. Because when it gets down to crunch time in those playoff games, you want to go with the guy who got you there, and Andres Munoz is a big reason why the Mariners are where they are right now.
I didn't get to Cole Young. We got to get running here, but I'd be remiss. Favorite thing you ate or did over Memorial Day weekend? Anything very cool? Any WWE? Anything really just startling and amazing?
I did not even know that yesterday was Memorial Day. So yeah. Favorite thing I ate. I cooked a really good red chicken curry last night. The jasmine rice was fluffy. And yeah, I would. I'll put my curry had some onions and had some fennel and had some ginger, garlic, red peppers, some seared chicken. It was a good taste. It was a good bite.
I believe that. That sounds like you know what you're doing. Yeah, that makes about sense.
You gotta. If you're not toasting the curry paste, you're not doing it right.
Jeffrey, goodbye. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, gentlemen.
There you go. There goes Jeff Passan.
Huh? If you're not toasting did he say toasting?
Yeah, he said toasting. Yeah, you got to toast the curry paste, obviously, Brock. I'm sure you know.